good afternoon. I'm Michelle Brazoulis, and I'm president of the foundations at Rochester Regional Health, and I am so happy to be joined today by my friend and Dr. Kevin Casey, who is a gastroenterologist, but more importantly, the president of Rochester General Hospital. Happy to have you here.
I'm going to shift that. I'm still more importantly a gastroenterologist.
That's
for the
true.
purposes
For the
today.
purposes of today. That
Yes.
is true, because we are here celebrating what?
Colorectal Cancer Month.
Yeah, what a great time for us to come together and talk about colon health, and I'm happy to spend some time with Dr. Casey today. So, as always, I invite the audience to ask questions. Please type them in, and we'll pause periodically and see what you want to know. But before we start talking about colorectal health, I want to talk about RGH. It's a really exciting time over there.
It is. And the list to start with the things on what to be excited with. First, I will say we were recently recognized by Health Grades. Health Grades rates doctors, it rates hospitals. When it rates hospitals, it looks at a tremendous amount of data. I like Health Grades rating of hospitals because Health Grades is not Yelp, it's not opinion.
Yeah.
In fact, I would actually kind of steer and say maybe U.S. News and World Report is made more Yelp because I get a review in the mail that asks me to rate hospitals for U.S. News and World Report. But what Health Grades does is Health Grades truly looks at 32 different conditions, 6 different surgical procedures, looks for complications related to those, and looks for the outcomes of those things to rate hospitals. And they've been rating hospitals for several years.
Yeah.
We have been in the top 250 hospitals, we've been in the top 100 hospitals, and their most recent ratings rated Rochester General in the top 50 hospitals in the country for the outcomes with those diagnoses and reduction of complications. And their data is not something you can game or go out and manipulate. It is the result of really hard work that is done by every nurse, every physician, every technician in that hospital. And it is not 1 year. This is 6 years worth of data.
That's what I find super interesting about this too. It's not a snapshot in time, it's longevity.
The other most exciting thing.
You guys could feel his pride.
The other most exciting thing is the new hospital we're building, the Sands Constellation Critical Care Center. This is a huge construction project on the front lawn of the old hospital. And will bring us a marked increase in capacity, brand new operating rooms, state-of-the-art patient rooms, state-of-the-art operating rooms. It will enable us to transform the physical campus of Rochester General Hospital, which is, in spite of the fact that we're doing cutting edge, the latest procedures and operations, left ventricular assist devices, which for patients with congestive heart failure, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation for patients with severe respiratory failure who are in critical care. We're doing those things in a facility that is bulging at the seams.
Yeah.
And this is a fabulous opportunity.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is tremendously exciting.
Slated to be completed and opened in the fall of next year.
My car registration expires after the building opens.
Oh, that's
so
kind of
it's
scary.
right around. It is right around the corner.
I said it as a fundraiser
yes,
as well.
yes.
That's right around the corner. No, that's super exciting. It's
Yes.
amazing. But again, congratulations
Thank
to everyone at Rochester General Hospital.
It is theirs. They own this.
I know. I said that to you a couple weeks ago, and you said this is not me. This is theirs. So
Absolutely.
congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk about colorectal health, because it is the Colorectal Awareness Month. So let's start with a really basic question that helps ground people who are listening. What is colorectal cancer?
So in your GI tract, the big parts of your GI tract are your esophagus, your stomach, your small intestine, and your colon. And the colon is the last 5 to 6 feet of your bowel.
Okay.
Functions of the colon primarily are removing the fluid from stool and concentrating stool to make stool firm.
Yep.
We're not going to be able to escape these things
That's
in this
okay.
discussion. I'm sorry, folks. That's the reality. I'm a gastroenterologist. And so what happens is the lining of the bowel constantly turns over. It's constantly regenerating itself. If errors,
Is bowel considered large intestine?
the large bowel
Okay, got
versus
it.
the
Just
small
checking.
bowel.
Okay, you said small intestine.
It's good, it helps us, it helps us. It grounds the conversation.
Yes,
So that lining is constantly turning over.
okay,
If it makes an error in the turning over of those cells, that leads to the development of an adenoma.
okay,
An adenoma is a growth on the wall of the colon. People ask me what they look like. They can look like kind of little flat bumps,
okay,
or they can look like little mushrooms.
okay.
These are pre-malignant lesions in the colon. If
Otherwise known as polyps?
otherwise known as adenomatous polyps.
Okay,
Not all polyps are pre-malignant polyps. That's an
Okay.
important thing for people to realize if they get nervous because they've had polyps, but their doctor has said they're not any polyps to worry about.
okay,
But these adenomatous polyps, as they get bigger, they increase the number of cells in them. And if they make another error, that error can develop into a cancer.
okay.
And it is a probability argument. As you get bigger in a polyp, you have more cells, a greater chance of making an error. And so I'll boil it down to
Yeah.
the punchline of all of our conversation is a colonoscopy takes out those polyps,
Yeah.
identifies those polyps early, and removes that risk by taking those polyps out.
Okay, and I'm gonna come back to that because I think it's
Absolutely,
important.
and we will.
So how many people are diagnosed every year with colorectal cancer?
There's about 39,000 people with colon cancer diagnoses. It is and this breaks up into two parts, the part about rectal cancer and colon cancer, and about 90,000 for colon cancer and rectal cancer, about 39,000.
So there's actually, it's the big category of colorectal cancer, but there's
Exactly.
colon cancer, there's rectal cancer.
Yes.
And the more,
So the rectum
More
is just
common,
that,
yeah.
is just in that distal segment.
Yeah.
And it does have different treatment, different implications than colon cancer.
so I want to talk about tests available for screening, but for colon cancer,
Yeah.
a colonoscopy, because that's the removal of.
Well, that is not the only test that's
You know, I'm
available.
dangerous with medical information.
Yes, that's not the only option that's available for
Okay.
diagnosis of colon cancer. And really, let me step back. What we want to do is we want individuals never to get colon cancer.
Yeah,
I think we failed a bit when we diagnosed colon cancer because we didn't do all the things we could have done to diagnose the polyps, the pre-malignant lesions that lead to colon cancer.
okay,
So screening
yeah,
and identifying those lesions is really the most important thing in preventing colon cancer. And the tools we have to screen individuals for colon cancer, and I'll kind of march in a stepwise fashion down in that list of things. This stool guaiac test, what we call fecal
Yeah.
blood test.
that's the ones you see advertised on
These
TV.
are the old ones. No, this is
Oh,
different than
predates
that.
that,
This
okay.
is, yeah. So this was when you were either sent cards home to check stool on those and see if there was blood in the stool.
Okay,
These are, they were good tests in that they brought a lot of people in. They brought a lot of people in who had false positives, however, because they're very sensitive but not very specific. There are things in the diet that can make them positive. Having a steak the night before could make them positive. We've moved to a different level of sophistication now. The one that you see on TV is a proprietary test called Cologuard.
yeah,
That is a test that actually looks for genetic material for colon cancers in it. Not covered by most insurances. It's a fairly expensive test. In this community, it's not used a whole lot because of the fact that it's not covered by insurance. It's I should say, my recollection is about $900 for that.
wow,
The one that's most commonly used in this community is FIT testing.
okay,
And this is an immune test that's done to detect blood in the stool. It is a high sensitivity test, it's a high specificity test, and a positive test leads always to a colonoscopy.
okay,
And then colonoscopy, which has always been our gold standard test for colon cancer and colon cancer prevention and screening. It is a test that requires a prep and sedation. We can talk more about those things. But data suggests, and there's data out there, that it saves more lives than cholesterol-lowering medications on a cost-effective basis than seat belts. It is a test that's significant in reducing the risk of colon cancer, and really is one of the principal tools. Even for those individuals who have FIT testing that are positive, they will end up having a colonoscopy.
So there's a couple things I want to ask about. So for the average person listening who is getting to that age where they should contemplate a colonoscopy,
About that age.
That age I think is 50.
Yeah,
right?
that age is 50, except, let's talk a little bit about high risk
I was going
groups,
to say
high
family
risk groups
history.
as well. So family history is the biggest thing for individuals, and awareness of that. And we start typically 10 years before a first degree relative who has had colon cancer or age 40.
Define first degree for the listeners.
Mom, dad, brother, sister.
Okay.
That risk goes down proportionately as your distance from that relative goes away. So that risk diminishes for your grandparents having had colon cancer. If there is a multiple lineage history of colon cancer, that is certainly something somebody should discuss with their doctor, because those are individuals that are at higher risk, and we may want to do some genetic screening in those individuals as well.
So for I want to make sure I heard you correctly too. So if you have a mother, father, sister, brother who has been diagnosed with colon cancer, your test might start at 40.
Yes.
That's what you were saying, right?
Yes.
But the most important thing is to make sure that you're sharing your family history with your primary care doc so that they can identify
Those individuals. And then the other group of individuals, and these are folks that don't stray from us necessarily too far, is individuals who have a history of inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay.
Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Long-standing history of those diseases increases the risk of colon cancer. Those folks are usually under the care of a gastroenterologist, but if you're not, it's important to see a gastroenterologist because of that increased risk as well.
So before we pivot to signs and symptoms, I want to just pause and ask Phil if there's any questions that have come in.
Two, what about people with celiac disease? I mean, is that
Celiac disease, not an increased risk. Celiac disease is, let's talk about celiac diseases, so anybody else listening has a question. So celiac disease is gluten-sensitive enteropathy. It is a cellular mediated immune reaction of a unique allergy type to gluten in the diet. And it causes injury to the small bowel. And the point I'd love to say about celiac disease is that if you have celiac disease and you follow your diet and you don't get exposed to celiac disease, you are as normal as your next door neighbor who doesn't have celiac disease.
That's actually really good to hear.
And that's the point I make to my patients, because you don't add risks to your life. It does not affect your health in any other way. After about a year or two, your risk of autoimmune diseases that are increased go down to the population risk.
Okay.
And as long as you are not gluten exposed in your diet,
You're good.
You're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Second question?
how many feet of intestines do we have?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So let me give you the surface area one. The surface area one is the one that I really like. If you take the surface area of the small bowel and you spread it all out, it's as big as a basketball court. So our absorptive surface of our small bowel is as big as a basketball court.
What's fascinating about that is that your body pushes material through that every single day.
And that huge surface area is what enables us to absorb food, to absorb nutrients, and it happens with in that tube that has all these little tiny fingers that do all that food that harvest that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about signs and symptoms. So for people listening, what's important, like what's the thing that you say pay attention to?
Your age.
Okay.
Certainly individuals who have blood in their stools.
And what's the rule? Dark blood, red blood, right? Isn't there a...
So red blood typically comes more distally. That can be a distal cancer, it can be hemorrhoids, and I hesitate to say hemorrhoids because we treat all blood in the stool the same.
Okay.
What's distal?
So distal is closer to the rectum.
Okay.
Proximal is closer to your mouth.
Okay.
There's all a continuum there.
Okay.
And so if you have a rectal cancer, you can have blood. If you have hemorrhoids, you can have blood. But as a physician,
Blood is blood.
I never make an assumption that this must be your hemorrhoids that are doing that. So bright red blood.
Okay.
Dark blood, so dark black stools can indicate it. Now there are other things in our diet that can do that. Spinach can do that. Intake of iron can do that. But bleeding can do that. And if you're bleeding slowly from a lesion on the right side of your colon, you can get black stools. However, most of the blood that comes from a colon cancer, particularly the ones on the right side of the colon, is very slow. It's not massive bleeding. And so we pick it up on those fecal occult blood tests, but individuals don't see it.
Yeah.
Alteration of bowel habits, new intestinal symptoms, abdominal pain, none of these are specific.
Yeah. Which is always
And that
interesting.
is the thing about colon
Yeah.
cancer screening and colon cancer awareness is that you need to be aware of it. You need to pay attention to the screening recommendations. And those are the healthiest things you
Yeah.
can do.
So I want to talk about that because I think clearly this is one of those cancers where early detection, you and I talked about it before we went live, is, and what's the key is early detection increases.
Survivability,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, it is not a mystery that in more advanced malignancies, when you have more advanced disease and more burden of disease, the outcomes are not as favorable as they are with early detection.
Yeah.
We can diagnose colon cancer on a colonoscopy and cure somebody.
It's amazing. But people don't do it, and people don't do it because there's lots of reasons, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, so people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't want to talk about it. People don't want the answer.
That's a big
Many
problem,
people
too.
are terrified of what we will find. And my answer always to those folks is knowledge is power. And the
Absolutely.
fact is that if you are anxious about that, the likelihood is, the greatest likelihood, even if you have some change in bowel habits, even if you have blood in your stool, the likelihood is that at the completion of that study, I'm going to come out and I'm going to go, yeah, good exam. Or we took off 2 polyps, everything looks great. I'll see you in 5 years or 10 years. But that knowing that and not living with, oh, I just don't want to see them because they're going to find something and I can't deal with them finding something, that doesn't stop the train.
Yeah, I know.
And life is much, much better when you have knowledge.
Yeah, and I speaking, you know this, but speaking for myself, having gone through it the first time this year, it is the anticipation of it is so much worse than the reality of the test and knowing,
Well,
and having the comfort of knowing that everything is fine.
The water cooler talk
Yeah.
about colonoscopies is
Worse than the
like
reality.
it is like fisherman's tales. And
It's
so
true.
when I had it was
Even the prep's not bad.
and even the prep today is not bad.
No, it's well worth it.
It is one of those things that we all just need to do.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about,
And the procedure itself, let me just
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that because we talked a little bit about the prep, which involves drinking a purgative. This is not like being sick when you have, it simply washes things out. I suggest people go read Dave Barry's article on having a colonoscopy from the Miami newspaper. Even as a gastroenterologist, I find that hilarious. It shines a humorous light on it, and I think you can print up your own certificate of accomplishment of having had a colonoscopy from that.
They should have mammograms too.
So the colonoscopy itself, the vast majority of our patients are sedated for colonoscopy. It takes about 20 minutes for a colonoscopy. You're generally at the facility for about an hour and a half. You recover afterwards. You may be a little bit sleepy from the sedation you had. I ask folks before their procedure where they're going out to breakfast, so I can know where my breakfast restaurants are best in town. Because you find out what people really dream of eating.
Yes, that's
Um,
true.
And so, it's
It's pretty quick.
even in my patients who we find colon cancer, we have an approach,
Yeah.
and we have a path forward, and I reinforce to them that that is absolutely the case.
Which is exactly where we want to go,
Yeah.
and treatment options. So clearly understand, and I think you've made that really clear for everybody, which is helpful, is early detection, early cure. So you're diagnosed with colon cancer. What are some of the things that the first things you say to patients who are
You're
getting
gonna-
that diagnosis?
You're gonna be all right. We're gonna take care of it. And I like to go to the patient's bedside and the patient who I know has a colon cancer. And optically, we know that we can be pretty accurate in suspecting that. I like to go to them and I like to give them the outline of what that plan's gonna look like right away. We're gonna get some imaging studies, we're gonna do some blood work. I'm gonna send you to see a surgeon. This will probably involve this type of surgery. Your surgeon will likely say that there's a possibility that you may need to have a temporary ostomy. And I say, they're required to say that. That's part of their disclaimer process. Like beforehand, I said to you, there's a chance of perforation with colonoscopy. It's unlikely that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I said, they'll put you back together again, and we'll find out what the pathology is. We'll find out whether you need any additional treatment, and we'll take care of this.
Okay, it's good. I mean, it's helpful, because I think
Yeah.
it matters to people to
And
hear that.
it is a multidisciplinary team that does that. It's surgeons, oncologists, the nurses who take care of those patients. It's a multidisciplinary team that manages things. And when I say takes care of this, I mean those are the people that really do it.
Yeah, but I think what I want people to take away from this, and I'm sure you do as well, is it's treatable. You need to find it early. You need to find it early. You need to go in for your colonoscopies and talk to your doctors about anything that feels or seems unusual.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we're going to talk about some fun things before we wrap it up. First of all, I do want to know this. Why did you become a gastroenterologist?
My father was a gastroenterologist,
Did know that, actually.
but I will say I think the career he had in gastroenterology is very different from the career I had in gastroenterology.
Say what?
Because of what's happened in technology.
Okay.
The tools that we have, the endoscopic tools we have. Gastroenterologists are internists by training.
Mm-hmm.
We do our internal medicine training and we specialize in gastroenterology. I like procedural things. I like the challenges of that. I like the technical challenges of that, and the intellectual challenges of diagnostic medicine. And so this gastroenterology is a specialty where you incorporate those things. The comment that my peers made in medical school was, you know what, of all the specialties, gastroenterologists always seem happy. And so, I like
Is that true?
gastroenterology. Yes.
Any sense why?
I think because we enjoy what we do.
That's great.
It's also a specialty where we can help a lot of people.
Well, you're a good dog, because you're my dog in this space. Honestly, you make it really easy and very comfortable. Okay, favorite TV show?
I cheated. I told you before.
Well,
and
but they don't know.
But I'm going to tell you anyhow.
And I've never heard of it.
So the one I said was Rectify. Rectify. So I'll give you a side on that. I love Ozark.
Oh, that's good too.
So
That
if
is
you
good.
like Ozark,
You can't be darker than Ozark.
see Rectify.
Okay.
It's on Netflix. Not a lot of viewership. New York Times actually wrote about it. It wrote about what to watch after, and I can't remember which one. Oh, what to watch after Game of Thrones ends.
Oh, well,
And it was like number 2 or 3 on that
Okay.
list of things to watch.
Okay. So everybody out there, watch Rectify. Dogs or cats? And I know the answer to this, but
Yeah.
again.
We only have 3 dogs. We have, and I'll throw in when my daughter visits, we have 4 dogs. We have 2 Chesapeake Bay Retrievers that are about 70 pounds each, and are probably a little bit feral. And we have a 6.5-pound Maltese. And when my daughter visits, we have a 5-pound Pomeranian
Jeez,
who runs out of the
Louise.
house.
No
Yeah.
cats though, ever.
No cats. though.
Okay. And the question everyone's interested in this week, in particular tomorrow, who's gonna win the
So,
NCAA tournament?
23 years ago, I came to Rochester General from the faculty at the team that's going to win this.
So that should be a trivia question, actually.
Yes. I have been a huge Duke fan since before I ever went there, but even bigger after the first 2 years I was at Duke, they won the first 2 of their national
Wow.
championships. And I watched the first win of the national championship with a bunch of gastroenterologists in the
Was
endoscopy
Shesty
unit.
the coach then?
Yes,
Wow.
in the endoscopy unit at Duke on a big screen TV. And I've been a great Duke fan since then, so
They're gonna win.
pick your Zion Williamson followers and follow Zion to the promised road.
And I think, Phil, you said that, what's the stats right now on how many people are picking Duke?
47%.
47% of the people are picking Duke. Wow. Listen, thank you very much. Let me ask, actually, before we break, are there any questions? Nope? Okay. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And for educating everybody. It is an important topic to talk about, and you make it very approachable and easy, and that's important because people need to get screened.
Very good.
It's one of those things that we just need to do. So, Dr. Casey, thank you for joining me today.
Always.
If you have any
My pleasure.
questions that you didn't get to ask today, just write them in and we'll be sure to get them back to you. And we hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Nice job.